and I'm really looking forward to answering your questions with Andrew Lansley, our excellent health spokesman. And it's great to be here supporting Simon Jones, who's working so hard to be the next Member of Parliament here in Dagenham and Reading. Now today, I want to talk about the National Health Service. It was 3 years ago that I said you could sum up my priorities in 3 letters, NHS. And it was the start of this campaign that the first thing I spoke about was our National Health Service. And here, on the final week, as we get into the final stretch of this election campaign, I'm back talking about the thing I care about most, that my family values most, and that is our National Health Service. It did amazing things for my family, and I know how much other families rely on it. And I know what a brilliant thing it is in our country, that if you get ill, if you have to go to your GP, if you have to go to your hospital, they don't ask how big your bank balance is, they don't ask for your credit card, they don't ask about your insurance policy. You just get the very best treatment that you deserve, free at the point of use. And that will always, always be the case under a Conservative government. Now let me say what I think is so important about the NHS in this election campaign, and the promises I want to make to everyone who's watching and everyone who's listening here this afternoon. As I've travelled around the country during this election, it's quite clear that one of the biggest oppositions that anyone faces is not actually another political party, it's apathy, it's cynicism, it's scepticism about whether politicians can actually deliver anything. And that's why we launched our election campaign, saying we're inviting all of you to come and join us in the government. Because real change takes place, not just when politicians pass laws or spend money or issue directives. Real change takes place when we recognise we're all in this together. We all have a role in trying to change our country together. And as we come to the end of this election campaign, I want to set out very clearly what our side of the bargain is, what the government's side of the bargain is, so that if people elect a Conservative government, they know what they're going to get. They know what they have to hold us accountable for. And that's why we've published the contract with the voters, between the Conservative Party and the voters, setting out the pledges that we will deliver. And when it comes to our health service, there are 3 very clear things that we are saying. First of all, we will increase health spending. We will increase health spending every year by more than inflation. We are not saying that about every other department, you cannot. We all know how big the hole in our public finances is. But we say the NHS is special, and so we will increase its budget by more than inflation every year. We are the only party to make that pledge about the NHS order. It's important, not just as a symbol of our commitment to the NHS, but we all know the pressures on the NHS. We know the new drugs coming on stream. We know about the new treatments and how much they cost. We know that more children are being born with disabilities and are living longer. We know about the extra costs on the NHS, so increasing its budget is right. That is the first point in our contract with you, the voter, for the NHS. The second is that we will fund those extra cancer drugs that people need and make sure services are available in our NHS. It's a tragedy today. You hear and you read about cases where people have had to mortgage their house, or people have had to borrow money to get cancer drugs that their doctors want them to have. So because we're not putting in place the national insurance increase that Labour are committed to, we will set up a cancer drugs fund to make sure that if your doctor thinks that you should have a cancer drug that will help you to live a longer and better life, you should get that drug. It's a £200 million fund, and it will help make sure that those drugs are available to people. We will improve services in other ways, including NHS dentistry, where we want proper checkups for all 5-year-olds. We will make sure that we have better out-of-hours services, which has been such a concern in recent years, and that people have proper access to their general practitioners. Because for us, the GP is the absolute key to the NHS. They are the doorkeepers of the NHS. They're the ones who help us through the NHS. But third, finally, and in many ways most importantly, the contract that we have with you, the British public, about the NHS, that we will stick to, that we will deliver on, is not just with the patients. It's also with the staff in our NHS who do such an incredible job. Not just the doctors and the nurses, but also the practice nurses, the receptionists, the people who manage the GP practices, the cleaners, the porters, all those involved in our NHS need to be valued. And I think in recent years they haven't been valued enough. You have been covered in processes and box ticking and targets and bureaucracy, and I find too many doctors and nurses saying to me, look, I have a vocation. I I do this because I love it. I want to be free to do that job, to show that vocation, and I feel it's being sapped by all the targets put on top of it. So we will get rid of those targets. We will get rid of the box ticking and the bureaucracy. We will not let the professions off the hook. They will have to deliver, but we'll trust you to deliver on the outcomes we all want to see, which is a healthier nation, making sure we're surviving cancer for longer, making sure our record in terms of strokes and heart attacks are up to the best in Europe, rather than so often as they are at the moment amongst the worst in Europe. So those are the pledges that we make to you, the voters, and we make to you, those who work in our fantastic National Health Service. They are here in black and white in our contract. In a minute, I will sign the contract in front of all of you. And I know that you are sceptical about politicians. You're distrustful of what politicians say. So I want you to hold us to this. I want you to make sure we deliver this. And if we don't deliver us, you can kick us out in 5 years' time. We need some accountability in our politics. That is what this contract is going to bring. And it's going to bring it to, I think, the most important area in our national and our public life. Those 3 letters that mean so much to my family, and I know mean so much to so many people in our country, NHS. So thank you very much for listening. I'm now going to sign the contract, and then Andrew and I will take your questions. Thank you very much.
Talking about funding the cancer drugs, what are you proposing to do with the PCTs, which is top heavy and a total waste of money? There's also within the Queen's Hospital, there is head of nursing that has a PA and a secretary. So I'm sorry to say, somebody isn't working out of that team. Thank you.
Okay. Very good point, sir. One of the problems we've had in recent years is the number of bureaucrats in the NHS has actually been going up 4 times as fast as the number of nurses. The superstructure over the top of the NHS has got too big. Now, the one thing I think we don't need right now is yet another reorganisation of the NHS. And there are people who work for PCTs who've had about 5 different job descriptions in the last 4 years because the thing's been changed so many times. So what we say is let's have a model of the NHS where the money follows the patient and the GP and the patient decide where they go, where they're going to get the best treatment. And you then slowly see the superstructure over the NHS decrease in its size. Let's put the patient and the patient's pathway with the GP up front and centre, and we can see the bureaucracy reduced. Key to that is getting rid of these process targets. Why are there so many bureaucrats? Well, because they're setting the targets, they're measuring the targets, they're reporting back on the targets, they're checking you're all meeting the targets, they're paying themselves to do all of that. That's why there's such a bureaucracy. If you strip it down, put the patient up front and centre, make the GP the gatekeeper to the NHS, have the money following the patient, and publish all the results in the NHS so we can see how we're doing, that is the way to cut the bureaucracy and make sure the money goes to the front line. Thank you. Gentlemen, again.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ashok Deshpande, local GP here. I'm the chair of one of the practice-based commissioning groups. Mr. Cameron, you will be in a driving seat on 7th of May. So, if you have signed this contract, especially the third one, plus doctors and nurses, which are likely, and do you think that how the government is going to take the public practice-based commissioning forward with the clinicians in the driving seat and not the administrators?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, what we believe in is proper commissioning. We think that the GP is the key to the NHS, and the GP and you, the patient, should be deciding where you go for your treatment. And they should have real budgets, and they should be commissioning properly. As used to work in the past, before Labour then got rid of it and then half reintroduced it, we think proper commissioning by GPs is the way to make the system work better. That's what we'd like to introduce. And I always ask this question whenever I go to a GP surgery, like the excellent one we're in today. I always ask, what would you like to do today in this surgery that you're not doing? And almost always the answer comes back, I'd like to run some more physiotherapy, or I'd like some CBT, some mental health treatment, because all too often in our GP surgeries, people are coming in with a physical injury or a mental injury, and we're too much of a drug-based service. whereas actually we ought to be expanding our treatments. And when you have a proper commissioning system like we'll have, you'll see GPs doing much more, you'll see primary care expand, and you'll actually see our nation getting healthier, which is really what it's all about. Other questions? Sir?
Victim of my crime. It took the London Ambulance Service 30 minutes to attend to my scene. As a result, the police had the resources to send a unit to cover them for their own protection. What can we do to prevent this from happening again, so that others who are a bit less fortunate than me don't die of some serious injury?
Well, sir, first of all, every sympathy with what happened to you. I mean, obviously we have this thing, what ought to happen in ambulances are meant to be with you inside 8 minutes when there's an emergency, and that is something that is meant to happen across our country. Clearly, sometimes there are issues about safety, and we need to make sure the police and the ambulance service work as closely together as possible, so you can get help in as fast as possible. One thing I would say about knife crime is that we need to get away from this terrible situation where today, about 1 in 5 people who commit a knife crime go to prison. The other 4 out of 5 get a caution, or get a slap on the wrist, or a community sentence. That is not good enough. It is unacceptable in our country today to carry a knife. If you carry a knife, you should go to prison. As my hero Gene Hunt would say, end on.
Local GP Romford. GP list sizes are increasing all the time, making it increasingly difficult for us to maintain excellent standards of care and provide enough appointments for patients. Are you going to increase the funding to PCT so that it can provide more GPs and nurses for the ever-expanding population?
Well, we do need to see an expanding number of GPs as these lists get longer, and we need to make sure that people want to go into general practice. Now, I think one of the keys to that, because GPs are now better paid, and that's right, but I think one of the keys to it is actually making GPs feel that it's going to be something where they're in control of their destiny, where they want to run a good GP's practice. And I think at the moment they don't feel that. And I'd ask Andrew, I've got Andrew Lansley here, our health spokesman, I'd like to join in on this one.
Hello, it's nice to, thank you very much, David. And can I say it's a great pleasure to be back here at the Rush Green Centre. I think I met local GPs here just under 2 years ago upstairs. And it's a great opportunity to talk to GPs locally about this, because I think clearly, as David was saying, one of the key things we have to do is to ensure that the resources get to the front line. And where the Primary Care Trust is concerned, one of the central things, of course, is making sure that resources get into GP practices, because the public locally here in Havering, in Rush Green, they trust their GPs to be their advocates, advisors, manage their care, commission their care for them. So actually you've got to have the time to be able to do that. And that does mean that we need to have enough GPs for that to happen, and enough support staff for GPs to make that happen. And the priorities of the NHS, as David said, have been wrong. The last 12 years, we've seen a 63% increase in the number of administrators, but only a 27% increase in the number of nurses, for example. These priorities are wrong, and we are going to have to make sure that there's far more clinical staff being recruited in the future, rather than simply adding to the administrative staff, so that you can have the time you need as a GP to make clinical decisions for your patients.
Thank you. More questions? Are there any questions from the media? Well, just in case.
How did you feel when you went right on to the first 3 debates?
Oh, right, the 3 debates. Well, I have to admit, I was a little bit nervous, because these were new things. I think it's been great in our country that we've had these television debates. I think they've opened up this election. I think they've got people more interested in politics. People come up to me in the street and saying they weren't going to vote, they now are going to vote. So I think they've been a great thing. And frankly, this is the 21st century. We should have television debates. We should use the modern media to make sure we're talking about these things. They even have television debates in Mongolia. So I think it'd be pretty odd if we didn't have them here. They've been challenging, they've been exciting. I think I probably enjoyed the last one a bit more than the other 2. And I think they give us some momentum going into this final week. But I tell you what, they're here to stay. I think all future elections will have television debates, and a very good thing too. Any more? So, hold on a second, let me just get you the microphone.
Chris Gawley from the Sunday Times. Do you think the electorate's view of the electoral system has changed over the last few months? Do you think people are more open to the idea of a proportional system now than they were in the past?
I don't think so. I think if you go down to the Dog and Duck in Barking or elsewhere, I don't think you'll find lots of people sitting around thinking if only we changed the electoral system, all our country's problems would be at an end. I think what people really want is they want the economy fixed, they want the social problems fixed, they want the things about politics they don't like, which is sort of unaccountable MPs they can't throw out if they misbehave. They want those things changed. And I think that when it comes to the electoral system, of course ours isn't perfect, and I would like to see some changes like equal size constituencies. I think that would be fair. But when you explain to people one of the advantages of our system is that you can throw a government out, and you can do it quite decisively, and in the end it's you, the voter, choosing the government, rather than the politician sitting in a smoke-filled room. I think people find that very attractive. Lady here. Thank you.
Back to the NHS again, with the funding for cancer drugs. I know they're going to be supplying more money, but who will be distributing it? Will it be NHyes again, or will you do away with that? Because they're not very nice.
Some process for clearing drugs for general use. And we would reform NHyes and make changes to it, make it faster and all the rest of it. But you have to have some process. But our Cancer Drugs Fund is specifically aimed at those people who've been told by their doctor that there's a drug that could help them, a drug that is available, and that they at the moment can't get. I had a case in my own constituency, a man called Clive Stone, who had kidney cancer, and he brought 7 people to see me, all of whom wanted a drug called Sutent. And they were told by the doctors it was good. The PCT wasn't allowing it to be prescribed. And they're exactly the sort of people that this cancer drug fund would be able to help. But that's not our only proposal. There's something else. Andrew Glancy is a very clever man. He's got a very clever idea, which I'll explain to you, which is called value-based pricing. And this is the thought. Sometimes the drug company comes up with a new drug and says, this is a brilliant drug, it's really going to help. And NHyes, the wheels grind very slowly as they look at this drug. And actually the answer would be to say, well, I tell you what, we'll start, as long as it's medically safe, we'll start prescribing it and we'll pay the drugs company in terms of how well it actually works. So you'd be sharing the risk between the drug company and the NHS of the effectiveness of this drug. And that means I think you could license more drugs more quickly, rather than having things grinding so slowly. Because when you look around Europe, and Andrew will probably give you some more figures on this, when you look around Europe, we are not using cancer drugs as effectively as other European countries. It's too slow in this country. So those two ideas, the emergency cancer drugs fund, paid for by not having the national insurance, and the value-based pricing, will get more drugs to more people, more quickly. Let me check I got that right, I'll hand it to my expert.
David, thank you. Can I just say, because actually, in a sense, the reason...
The 2 billion funding for the cancer drugs, is this new money, or is it part of the overall NHS budget?
What it is, it's £200 million. What it is the government has got this plan to increase national insurance contributions on every job that pays more than £5,700. Obviously, the NHS is a huge employer. And so the cost of that will be £200 million on the NHS next year. Now, because we are saying that we're going to reduce wasteful spending in the current year, right across government, we can actually stop that national insurance increase going ahead. Because we can do that, the money will be available to us to have this cancer drugs fund that we can start establishing straight away. And there is, it's in the tens of thousands the number of people who aren't getting these cancer drugs through. It's quite a discrete group of people. And we can get the drugs to them more quickly, so you can have more cases exactly as Andrew Glancy described. Let's have gentleman right at the back.
Can you take a media question?
I'm very happy to always take media questions.
The New York
As far
Times.
and wide as possible, including the New York Times.
Are you a man on a roll?
Well, that's for others to decide, but I think we came out of the last debates with the Conservatives making a very strong and positive argument. This election really comes down to a simple question, which is how do you get change on Thursday next week? And the truth is that if you vote Conservative, you know you're going to get a new Prime Minister, a new team, a new direction for our country. You also know you're going to get the economy moving, you're going to get an answer to the big social problems, you're going to get decisive government that will get things done. I think that's our big argument we can make between now and next Thursday. And there's one other point I want to make, which I made in those debates, which I think is incredibly important, and it's this. There are difficult decisions ahead for our country. There are some quite difficult things that we all know we have to do. And I want people to know about me I think a good society, a strong society, is where you look after the weakest and the elderly and the frail and the vulnerable and the poorest, and you've got to make sure you protect those people as we make difficult decisions. That is exactly what I will do. That is who I am, that is what I'm like, that is what any government I lead will be like. And people need to know that, because there's a lot of people out there trying to frighten people in this country, and that's not right. There are difficult things we have to do to get through to the better times ahead. I think I can lead our country through those difficult times to the better times ahead, and people need to know that I will always protect those who need the most in our society. That's what we're all in this together. That's what One Nation conservatism is all about, and that's what I'm about. And we're going to be making that argument from here until polling day, as we make the argument for the big changes our country needs. And I thank everyone very much indeed for coming, and I thank our hosts again for putting on such a wonderful place for us to have this event. And I thank Andrew for coming and answering questions so well. And thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.
What I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is this. In the interest of our country, in the interest of the people of our country, it is essential that this man leaves our government for the benefit of all the people in this country and get rid of these nonsensical people we've got there now, including the Liberals. Get rid of them. We've got to try and have an overwhelming majority to help our country.
Thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of all the local population, our practice population, some guests, and the doctors of the local medical committee who are all here, and us doctors from this health sector, thank you and wish you very much well, saying that you will be the next Prime Minister on 7th of May, and our Health Secretary sitting here. And we will take you.
Nicky, are you going to walk back or?
Yeah, go back.
Good to see you. Thanks very much. I got rid of the BMP anyway.